Kat, I checked your website and I like this. That's where I see we're both on the same page. You're saying fitness minimalism is a philosophy in which you focus your training time on a small number of carefully selected and optimized activities that strongly support things you value. Awesome. Lifelong function, health, strength, mobility, etc. And then happily miss out on everything else. Comment on it. I like this. Where does that come from?
Well, it comes from first me wanting everything, and my fitness background is that I tried to cram everything into my training, and it led to me achieving really nothing and burning out. And I actually, it's from the study of economics. I have a Bachelor of Economics. Wow. Ever since I started sort of applying economics to my life, I realized that in life we have limited resources that have alternative uses of everything, time, energy, money. And every time we make a choice, we have to forego something else. And so prioritizing is really important in life, in business, in everything. And ever since I started realizing that and sort of applying that in my life, I realized that my workouts and my training was not very functional in the way that I wanted to be. I was just chasing after too many things and achieving none of them. And my motivation because of that was flagging. And ever since I became really clear on what I want, a lot of perceived choices that I had in my head. I had like 100 choices that I could do every day, I thought, with training, for example. But ever since I became very clear with what I want and what my priorities are, most of those choices just fell away, and it became much easier to choose what I want to do. And it also freed my mind for other decisions in my day, in my life. So fitness became much simpler. And because my training, I train a lot of people, but majority of people that I train and that I design my training for are busy people who are mind workers, nerds, I call them. So the ones that work with their heads. They don't want to think about what they want to do every day in terms of training. They don't want to overload their head with all those decisions. They don't want that decision fatigue. And so they need simplicity, straightforwardness, and just sticking to something that they can do and they can be sure that it's going to make them healthy for a long time. And so far this has worked because myself, I'm a bit of a nerd. I'm quite lazy. I don't like, I'm not like one of those people who always wants to move, always wants to exercise, always wants to try new things. I'm actually a real bookworm. And for me, training has to really just be the biggest bang for my buck. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and I'm gone. And I design workouts, and that's why I went to Kettlebells. I design workouts and programs for people like that, and I find the most comfortable. That's my niche. I can train athletes, but I always end up gravitating in my head towards simplicity and towards sort of consistency and sustainability like that.
Wow, so awesome. You're saying you're basing these decisions, these ideas of really prioritizing what matters on economics. Right? Can you make that connection? Because as far as I understand it, I've started to read the book and I didn't come very far because it's such a powerful and book that is not easy to digest. Thomas Sowell, Basic Economics. And it's a very powerful book, and he lays out stuff that I have to read like 5 times to understand it. And sometimes I go through it and I'm like, I still don't understand it. And now you're like saying, I base these easy decisions, taking the most bang for your buck, which I appreciate as well, based on economics. How do you make that connection?
Well, economics is the science of life. A lot of people call it the, what do they call it? The dismal science, because it's the science of reality. It's the science of what real world is like. And a lot of people like fantasizing and living in a dream world
100%.
where everything is possible, but unfortunately not, right? So if we want to succeed in life, we want to know that there are certain limitations. And so the reason why I like economics is that it's very grounded. It only uses the things that are available, and then it puts those things to their ultimate best uses for the goals that we want to achieve. And economics, you can't really bullshit it, if I can say that word, because it's results based. It's either producing the results or it's not producing the results. So economics, it's judging your outcomes. It's judging what you're doing, not based on your intentions, but based on your outcomes. So if I want to build muscle and burn fat, and if I want to stay healthy, but what I'm doing is not getting me there, but I'm feeling somewhat good about something, it doesn't matter. It's not getting me there.
So something's off. Yep.
And that sort of grounds me, because a lot of the time I have a very active mind and I like novelty. I know I chase sometimes novelty, and this sort of understanding grounds me and brings me back down, and sort of makes me a little bit more systematic, I would say, and more pragmatic. And yeah, the reason I link it is because it's a science of life, economics.
Right. So if I understand it right, you may correct me, of course, is because of the fact-based nature of economics, you're saying the connection that I'm getting is it's easy to come to the conclusion of reality if you go down a certain path. So I'm like, okay, what you're mentioning, and that's something that ties into this awesome blog post that you had about kettlebells versus bodybuilding, which I really enjoy. We're going to get to it. So it's like, listen, economics is facts-based. It's reality. So if what I am doing is not getting me there where I want to go, then I have to either adjust or ask myself if I'm on the right path. Am I making that connection somehow? Because economics, while I do understand part of it, I do understand the realities of it. So sometimes you mentioned this, that people sometimes live in this fantasy world, where I'm like, when it comes down to business, you have a gym, you are an owner, so you have to act like an owner, and you have to make sure that the bills are paid at the end of the month, right? So I'm always that kind of guy. And just as a small side note, and I'm wondering what you're saying, is I'm the kind of guy that says, if I'm not able to pay my bills at the end of the month, then I've done something wrong. And then if my doors are shut, if my doors are closed, and I look at the fitness market that grows into the billions every year, it grows larger and larger. And because of technology, people are starting to move less and eat more because we have these conveniences all around. And if I have to close my door because I'm serving a product in a market that is growing, then it's my fault. That's reality. What is your take on this?
I would say I would move away from fault necessarily, because there are so many things that we can make at fault, but I would say responsibility. Yep.
It's my responsibility.
Yeah, like you live in a certain environment, and it's up to us to take that environment into account and assess what we want to do with that environment. And for example, COVID. For example, we have situations where, because of shutdowns, the gyms had to close. My brother has a gym in Israel. That gym had to close, and it was struggling because of that. But they pulled through because they employed a whole bunch of different methods. So what they did is just assessed where they were, and then they decided. So it's a decision to stay open, for example. Then the next decision is to what we can do, how we can deliver the product. We can say, well, we're going to close, but we're going to move online. I would say it's a responsibility. There's no point blaming either ourselves or someone else, because what comes out of blame, it's just a lack of power. So if we blame someone else, then we give them the power over our life. If we blame ourselves, then we just feel down, like we're terrible. I don't know, maybe some people, it's helpful for them to blame. There is one guy that I've read called David Goggins. And
David Goggins. Yeah.
David Goggins. He
the motivation god. Yeah.
Oh, you're a piece of blah,
yeah.
And so
some people need this. Yeah, some people need this. Yeah, but if I may, I agree what you're saying. Yet, if I may share this perspective, where I'm maybe I'm not choosing the right words, but sometimes I believe people are responsible and have to stay accountable for what they are doing. And let's put it like this. You mentioned the example of COVID. So COVID, or just like any other crisis, if you go back in history, every crisis opens new opportunities and a lot of chaos at the same time. So you always have winners and losers. And I just talked to my mother today, and I told her, and I told this many times, I can't even say it out loud, but I sometimes am kind of grateful that this pandemic happened, because it forced us, my business, it forced me to make certain decisions, to fully focus on kettlebells, to upgrade my online business, so that now this is the first month actually where almost all of our online content pays all the bills. That's crazy. That's one of the first, that's a first for me. Yeah, so you see, that's what's happening right now. So if economics is telling you, let's put it like this, if reality and economics is telling you, listen, you have two choices. You either move into that new direction. I know it's scary. We don't know where it leads, but you either move there or you stay put where you are and blame everybody else, or blame the government, or blame COVID, whatever you want to do, blame the crises. And then at the end of the day, you're going to lose. So then maybe we could say somebody is at fault at the end of the day if this person didn't make that decision. That doesn't mean that they're a bad human being. I'm not saying this. We can make economic bad decisions and still be awesome people. But maybe sometimes reality kicks in, and economics is like this, right? It's like, listen, if you didn't go down that route, you can't blame now everybody else. Maybe the blame is shifting towards you, and sometimes maybe some kind of negative anchor has to happen for people to maybe realize, okay, wow, I was wrong. Or for other people to realize, look at that decision and be like, okay, that's not the example that I want to follow. Mm-hmm. So, wow, we're already getting into deep stuff, Kat. I really have to upgrade my brain to be on par with the language, because like you, English is my second language, so I really have to think. That's awesome.
So just a question, do you think in English or you think in Swiss? What's your native language?
My native language is Swiss German, but it's funny, as soon as I switch the language, I automatically think in English. And what happened, and I'm wondering your opinion on this as well, what sometimes happens is when I speak in my mother tongue, sometimes English words slip in. And I'm like, wow. So I'm guessing, wow, this language is taking over my brain at such a high degree that sometimes in my mother tongue, I'm like, oh, no. And then I got to say it in German. How is that in your case?
Same. Well, English is actually my third language. I speak Russian and Hebrew, and then third
English. You mentioned Israel. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, but because I've been living in New Zealand for 20 years now, so I think in English, I write my journal in English. And when I speak to my mom and my Russian friends, I have to translate certain words from English. So my Russian is now worse than my English, because I've learned a lot of concepts. I've learned all my fitness concepts in English.
It's English. It's the same here. Everything that we say, it's clean, it's swing, it's press, it's squat, it's deadlift. And people be like, why is there no German word? And I'm like, there is. For example, if we say squat in German is Kniebeuge. Or in Swiss German, it sounds even more strange. It's Kniebeuge. So I'm like, listen, that's so much time that I need to explain it in that. In the German expression, squat, that's easy. It's a squat. It's boom. Mm-hmm. All right. So I like this, and I love languages. I speak French as well, because in Switzerland we have 4 languages. We have German, in the northern part. We have Italian in the south. We have in the west, we have in the west we have French, and then we have a small part that is Rätoromanisch. That's a very, very seldom language that is spoken in Switzerland. So and when you love languages, I think then it's something that comes natural to you, that you just really dig into it and really enjoy speaking it. Now you mentioned something, Kat, decision fatigue. You say you have clients that they don't want to think, and I've experienced this as well. When I was talking to, it wasn't a client, it was back when I was working as a fitness instructor, and I always saw this one guy, and he was just doing some random stuff, and I was like, why don't you think you want to follow? Don't you think it would be better for you to follow a systematic plan or something? And he was like, listen, the whole day I'm working with spreadsheets and numbers. So when I hit the gym, I don't want to think. So what are you getting out of this? And how do you coach these people? Because somehow, yes, I understand you don't want to think and you want to just do what you want, but still we need some guidance and some systematic approach in order to get results. What is your take on this? How do you coach these people?
So this is a very, very good question. I'm really glad that you brought up this topic, because many years ago, when I was trying to figure out a way for a whole variety of people to stay fit for their entire life, and I was looking at how different people do that, I realized that people are very different in how they maintain their fitness.
Yeah, 100%.
And I actually read a book that I highly recommend checking out. I recommend it on my reading list. It's called The 8 Colors of Fitness, and it's written by a lady called Suzanne Brew. And she actually did some research on
the eight colors of fitness, right?
Of fitness.
8 colors of fitness.
And so she did research based on personalities and how people maintain lifelong fitness habits based on their personality. So she just did something really simple. She used the Myers-Briggs. It's a little bit discredited, that system, but it still sort of works if you think about generalities. Myers-Briggs, the 4 letters, like extrovert, introvert, feeler, thinker, and so forth.
It's something that we could also apply somehow, is the ectomorph, endomorph, mesomorph, right? The body type kind of thing, right? So in that area, regard.
I mean, the main thing for the person is to know themselves. Like, that's for me. I always say, okay, first thing you need to do is just get to know yourself. And you're not going to do it straight away. But these tests and these sort of personality or ectomorph, endomorph, they give you a starting point where you can start creating a manual, like a user manual on yourself, use a manual on Gregory, use a manual on Kat. And that book just sort of started me thinking, because there are people who keep lifelong fitness through random training. There are people who never step foot in the gym, never pick up a weight, and yet they're fit and vibrant, and all they do is go hiking, they swim, they cycle, they garden, and they are fantastically in shape for what they want to do.
Yes.
So the thing that I always say is, you want to A, know what you want, and B, who you are. And that's actually also, it also relates to economics yet again, because that's what economics does, is what do you want to achieve in your society, in your business, whatever, and who are you dealing with? Dealing with humans. So economics deal with a lot of human psychology, human sociology. How do humans make decisions? And so you need to understand how you as a person make decisions. What do you like? Do you like groups? Do you like individual? Do you like variety? Do you like stability? Do you like quiet? Do you like noise? Do you like a lot of equipment or a little equipment? And so all those things are important. And a lot of the time, trainer is very helpful in that, because when I work with my clients, I give them that test, but then based on their preferences of the workouts, I am from the side, because I am an outsider, right? I'm looking at them from outside. I'm able to observe them and tell them, oh, by the way, did you notice that you really prefer to train at a structured time every day? And if you can't do it, the whole day is just gone. Or another person say, did you notice that you don't really care what time of the day you train? You just can squeeze it into any time and you don't really mind.
Yeah.
Some people must have a plan, and they can't do it. Actually, it can be a disability. Some people have to have a plan. And if they can't follow the plan, if they don't have enough time to squeeze that whole plan in, they don't do anything at all. Another person will just go, that's okay, I'll just do 10 minutes. But a person who really is rigidly following a plan, they'll just not train at all. So I would say the first thing is a person needs to know themselves. And if that guy who is doing random exercises and he's doing spreadsheets at work and then he comes in and do random stuff, well, he needs to ask himself, is he achieving what he wants to achieve? If he is, it's fine. It's not broke. Don't fix it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
If he is not, then he can start reevaluating and think, okay, maybe I need a program, maybe this, maybe that. But if he is not, if he's happy and he's training, we move on. We move on to someone who needs.
And in that case, I think in that case, right, if somebody is happy with a randomized system and plan, and hey, I just do what I want whenever I want. And you mentioned hiking. It just came to my mind because yesterday I had a client here, and her husband, he came to the gym when she was done with the session, and then he and his friend, they were both hiking. And I was like, wow, where have you been? Well, in that region. And how long? Well, 6 hours. I'm like, wow. And how do you break that up? And he was like, well, we just take a break and, blah, blah, blah. But we do mostly all of it at one piece. And I'm like, wow, that sounds great. And he's great. They're both in shape. They both look awesome. And they don't lift, but they look awesome for what they do because they've been hiking their whole life. And now, if I may ask a question, randomized training, yes, you're that type of gal or guy or gal. Okay, that's fine. Yet, have to ask you this. I am, and you as well, I think, I'm a huge fan of basics and simplicity. That's what I heard from you now. Simplicity to basics, right? So, and you mentioned variety. And I talked to Dan John about this, and he said, variety is for fun. And I love what he says. He says, how do we spell fun? And I was like, well, how? He says, W-I-N, win. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, if I'm on the field with my guys and we are not winning at the end of the day, it's not fun. But at least we have variety in the training. Nobody cares about that. So fun means winning. So if your system that is full of variety is not winning at the end of the day, it's not fun. So that's what I was getting out of it. So how do you approach someone, or how do you approach the idea of saying, listen, most people need some kind of plan and need some systematic approach. Yet if they always want to choose variety, they will never reach their optimum potential, or they just, I'm always this. Sometimes kettlebell, sometimes barbell, sometimes this, sometimes there. So how do you approach this? Because maybe I'm somehow emotionally attached to the basics so much that I don't see as far. But how do you approach it when we know that the basics work, yet people are looking always for variety?
Okay. I personally, I understand what you're saying. So what works, but also that people sometimes choose what they like.
Yeah.
And it can be really frustrating because from the professional point of view, you want to give people what they need. But from a libertarian and human point of view, we also want to leave people to do what they want to do and be free to do what they want to do. Yeah. And the thing is that the things that make people happy are very varied, and we cannot dictate what will make a person happy. Mm-hmm. And so if Dan John, I love Dan John, by the way, he's so good at
he's awesome.
Nonsense. He's just with all of his books.
Yes.
It brings you down right into the basics. Right?
Yes.
So Dan John, he is an athlete coach. And yes, he trains military personnel and grandmas and stay-at-home moms and everybody, but he's an athlete coach. So he trains, the way he approaches his own training, for example, is from an athlete's point of view. Mm-hmm. So certain things make him happy. For example, he spells fun by W-I-N.
Yes.
Another person might spell fun as fun. And as frustrating as it is, there is no way that I can help that person unless that person, from their own will, from their own life, from their own experiences, whatever happens, epiphany, comes to the realization that they are not satisfied with where they are. In back in the day when I was a fitness instructor, people used to say that if a person is not willing to do something for their fitness, for example, they used to say in this crude manner, they say that person is not fat enough. So saying, right?
Yes.
So it says that the inefficiency of the person's method has not caused them so much pain as to move them
that they want to change. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so if that person is not yet inefficient enough in their life to make it painful, then it's not up to us to push them into that direction. It has to come from the person. And I'm a big believer of free will. I don't like when things like government and other things interfere in people's decisions.
Yeah, me too.
I think because I come from Russia. I come from a socialist communist country, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work to force people to be angels, because what I found is that yes, people were sporty. People did certain things that the government prescribed them to do, but they only did that because if they don't, they will be put in gulag. And in the West, we have a choice to be obese if we want to. We have a choice to watch cartoons or work. We have a choice to eat ice cream or salad and meat. And that free will is what makes virtuous decisions virtuous. Because if you don't have a choice and you make a virtuous decision, you're just an automaton.
You're a robot.
It doesn't make a human. Human has to have free will.
Yes.
And that's why I sort of have to swallow my professional desire to steer all the people into the way that will make it work for them, and sort of allow them to mature. Because when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so I'm sort of ready for the students to come, but they have to be ready.
Yes, awesome. So let's go with that train of thought into the idea of good and bad exercises. Because if we approach it from that standpoint, and I do understand where you're coming from, because I feel the same pain. It's like I have to swallow it. For example, I always talk to Angie about this, and we're like, I think sometimes people have such a warped perception of time. And then you combine this warped perception of time with the fact that time goes by pretty fast, that they do not realize that they haven't been working out for the last 3 weeks. They're like, oh, I worked out yesterday. Unfortunately, it's 3 weeks ago, the last time you showed up. Oh, really? So time goes, right? So that's where I have to swallow my, push the frustration down, like, listen, totally fine. Whenever you want to show up, you show up. We're here. Right? We have open doors. Yet if we take it a step further and we, keep this idea of variety. Yes, it makes some people have fun. And I say this as well. And I think the best exercise or the best workout regimen is the one that you like doing and that you can adhere to. 100%. All right. Yet when we talk about from the professional perspective, with all the knowledge of biomechanics, of exercises in general, of what produces results, experience with clients, I think there emerges some idea of what exercises work best and some just don't. Do you agree with this?
Yes.
Great. And now, how do we approach this? Because I've recently heard somebody say there is no bad exercise. It's just, or there are no bad exercises. It doesn't come down to, I'm paraphrasing, I have to correct. He says, there is no best exercise that you can do. And let's put it down to kettlebells. What is your opinion on this?
Okay. So if you go to best exercise, my question is always best for what? Because best, the notion of best, it has to come with a standard. It's a standard of something. So it's achieving some sort of goal. So when
So
we
let's
say best
just
exercise,
just quickly, Kat. Let's generalize it, because we're both YouTubers as well. So we don't know the goals of the people who are watching our stuff. We know somehow what they want, but it's a broad generalization. With, we have some idea of what a goal is supposed to look like for. We have 24,000 subscribers right now, so I don't know each and every goal. So taking the big picture step, right? Taking a huge step back, not the individual approach, just as an input for what's the best exercise.
Are you familiar with the notion of skill transfer? So there was a trainer in gymnastics called Carl Paoli. He was a popular CrossFit gymnastics coach. I have a background in CrossFit and CrossFit gymnastics.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
I did a lot of coaching and studying under that. And there's a lot of talk in CrossFit about skill transfer. In kettlebell training, it's called what the hell effect. Mm-hmm. But the scientific name for it is skill transfer.
Skill transfer. Mm-hmm.
And what it means is you do one movement, and being proficient at that movement, being strong and proficient at that particular movement, somehow makes you really good at a whole bunch of other movements.
Yeah.
For example, squatting. If you're really good at squatting, it makes you also quite good at jumping.
Yeah.
It makes your knees safe for running and walking and all those things. Same thing, if you're good at kettlebell swings, it makes you a much faster runner. It makes you a more resilient hiker.
Yeah.
It makes you a better jumper. Your knees are healthy. You have strong core. Your posture is good. So it's a what the hell effect or skill transfer. People even say,
wow,
if they do swings, somehow their pull-ups become better because one arm swings activate lats more than two hand swings and more than a lot of other exercises.
Yes.
So those things, the way that I think about it when I pick the best exercises is the biggest bang for my buck in terms of skill transfer.
Wow.
So what do I need to do to be good at pretty much everything else?
Wow. That's great. And so the idea, wow, I like this. So the idea is, listen, when we talk about the best exercise, I want to think about that exercise that grants me the best skill transfer in the amount of time I'm investing into working out.
Yes.
Right? That's that a good summary? Wow, that's great. Yeah, so let's put it like this. Which exercise would that be? Because I have an exercise in mind that I believe is one of the most powerful exercises that you can do with the kettlebell. I'm wondering your take on it. Do you have one that you believe this is it?
I'm always afraid of that question because it keeps me up at night. I'll try to answer it. Because it's one of those, of this question. Which one would I pick? It's like what you will take to the desert island? Like
yeah, that's it. Yeah, great. That's great.
So I would, on one hand, I would say the Turkish get up because it takes the body through the full range of motion. It is easy to do for a person who cannot do ballistics. It doesn't require actually a kettlebell at all. You can do it with anything. You can do it with a person. It originally is designed to be done with a person. I had a guy who did it with a log of wood because he didn't have a kettlebell.
That's great.
And it has insane skill transfer into other areas of life. It creates shoulder and hip stability, hip mobility, core strength, coordination, leg strength, upper body strength. It does translate into pull-ups. Everything that translates into pull-ups is good in my opinion. So that would be my one thing, and that's why my very first online course was on the Turkish get up because I was so in love with that exercise that that's what I did first, before swings, before anything else. And another exercise that I would say is the clean and jerk. I'm a real big fan of the clean and jerk because again, it takes a while to learn it, so it's already a huge coordination feat. It requires a lot of mobility, especially done with 2 kettlebells. And if you have seen Giveaway athletes, men who do double 32 kettlebell clean and jerks, they have insane shoulder mobility.
Insane.
Beautiful posture.
Yeah.
And posterior chain, anterior chain, leg strength, beautiful. So I would say those 2. I didn't mention swing. Swing is great because it's so simple. But for kettlebell lovers, it's a clean and jerk. And for everyday person who doesn't know kettlebells, it's the Turkish get up, in my opinion.
So we're on the same page. I always go with the clean and press or clean and jerk. Because I think, because this question was asked to me, it was like, hey, do you think the kettlebell swing is the best exercise? I'm always like, yeah, it's one of the most popular and one of the most powerful exercises you can do with the kettlebell. Because of the way the bell is shaped, because you have a bell you're working with, you cannot do it with a dumbbell, or you can, but it's not the same effect because of the weight distribution. You cannot compare it. And with the barbell, of course, it's impossible. But this is the unique aspect of the kettlebell, is the ballistics. So I'm always I got frustrated when I understood it. I got frustrated when I read these articles that were like talking about the kettlebell, blah, 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 blah. And then I see them do exercises like curls and stuff. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm like, guys, you're missing out on the biggest differentiating factor of kettlebells, and that is the ballistics. That's what you don't do this type of exercise with a dumbbell. You can do a Turkish get up with a dumbbell. But the way the kettlebell is designed is, I believe, one of the most powerful aspects is the ballistic nature of it. And so I came up with the clean and press because I was like, the problem with the swing, so to speak, is you don't do overhead movements. And with the clean and press, you are going overhead, from the bottom to the overhead. And when you go into the backswing in the clean phase of the lift, you still have the swing portion involved. So that's why when you mentioned the clean and jerk, I was like, yeah. So we're so on the same page. And that's why I see, if somebody is really digging into the science of kettlebells, or just really loves the sport and loves or Hardstyle, it's not just loves kettlebells or training in general, and they dig deep, I mostly see that most people come to kind of the same conclusions. It's like the path leads towards that road. It's like you mentioned with the Turkish get up. I do think as well. That's why I love simple and sinister from Pavel. Swing and Turkish get up, what a powerful combo. Simplicity, that's where it is, and one of the 2 powerful exercises that you can approach. And you mentioned the coordination aspect, which I think is highly interesting, because I'm having a podcast coming up with a guy. I think he's doing his doctorate's degree on Alzheimer's, and he finds it interesting of how the coordinative aspect of kettlebell training can build neural reserves in your brain that may help combat Alzheimer's down the road, which I think is highly interesting. Yeah, he sent me a manuscript, 40 pages. I read through it, and he wants my opinion because I'm just the expert on kettlebells. I'm really looking forward to that stuff. So
it's brilliant. I
awesome.
Once did a TED style talk. We have a thing called TED style talks here in New Zealand. And I got once invited to do a TED style talk, and my theme was what your butt and your head have in common. And the theme was, so the central theme that ran through that was the research done on the fact that we have the butt. So we're humans. Our gluteus maximus is the biggest gluteus maximus amongst all the glutei maximi in the world. And that's what makes us human. And
great.
The moving that part, so walking, which is what allows us to walk upright, the butt, to run, the butt, to pick things up and hold them upright overhead, the butt, is what also helps our brain develop. And they've linked movement and brain activity in numerous studies. There's a book called Spark as well. It's an entire book on that, on how fitness and exercise are linked to brain activity, and lack of exercise is linked to brain deterioration. And so I absolutely would love to hear the podcast with this man doing doctorate on exactly that topic.
It's powerful because he was coming up, because I was doing a video, and that's why he contacted me, because I was doing a video, I think I was talking briefly about kettlebell science, and I reacted to redefining strength to Corey, and she was talking about the American swing, which I don't like because it puts your shoulder into a difficult position. And the premise of the video was like, well, science or the scientific background, I did my research and I didn't find anything about any potential dangers of an American swing. And so I contributed to that idea and said, I love research as well, yet kettlebell science is rare, especially in the West. It is rare. And I went through some of those reviews and studies. And the biggest problem that I saw was how they treated the kettlebell. They treated the kettlebell like a dumbbell. Or they treated it like you, right? Or they treated the kettlebell like you would do it for hypertrophy work. But that's not, that's why I love your blog post about kettlebells versus bodybuilding. And then I said in the video, I was like, the method is a problem because it does not respect the most differentiating factor of kettlebells, which is the ballistics. So if you don't tap into that potential, you will rarely see what the kettlebell can do in a research setting. So that's the reason why he approached me. So I'm really looking forward to that stuff.
Funnily enough, with American swing, I found that, you know how you, as a trainer or as an athlete, you do the things that work. And so I remember when I was competing in CrossFit, and somehow when I was competing, pretty much about a month after entering CrossFit, I was already doing elite level competition.
Wow.
It just so happened that my own training prepared me to be really good at CrossFit.
Yeah.
And what I found is that I never trained with overhead kettlebell swing. Never did American kettlebell swing. I always did heavy Russian swings. And I remember there was one competition where I think it was in the finals, we had to do 100 American swings as a CrossFit for time. And we were all doing it together. And I was part of the team. And my team came to that exercise late, and that was given to me because I'm the kettlebell girl. Right. And I smashed it, the American swing. Like the other girl was not even like, she got behind because she had to rest. Russian swings, talking about skill transfer, make you better at American swings, but American swings don't make you better at Russian swings.
Wow.
So if you have a choice out there, people who are CrossFitters, highly recommend, comes from someone who won a lot of competitions.
Great. So
highly
great.
recommend doing heavy Russian swings, and your American swings will not cause you a problem.
Wow.
American swing is just a light version, easy version, and it doesn't actually have much of a skill transfer.
Powerful. So that's for all you CrossFitters out there. I'm linking Kat's PayPal account so you can just send some money to her way, because that's insightful knowledge you won't get anywhere else. Wow, that's powerful. And you know, I think the problem with the American swing is just, you know, the shoulder issue. And now I'm diving deep into the book from Dr. Stuart McGill, Low Back Disorders. And this is what we can maybe segment into it, which I'm really looking forward to your opinion. He talks about rotational torque. And so rotating the T-spine, okay, thoracic spine is fine if your lumbar spine is locked. That's what I've learned from the Hardstyle guys. And when you go after them, like, okay, you save your weakest part, the weakest part of the chain, your lumbar spine. You save it from rotation, but the upper body can rotate. You're safe. You're good. Okay, that's because I made this one mistake in the Turkish get-up. And even in the windmill, I now understand, okay, how to really move my body and save my lower back. So what is your take on this? I think, you know, the jugglers, right? Juggling kettlebells, doing side swings, or doing these highly rotational moves. Now, from my understanding, when I look at where Dr. Stuart McGill is coming from, and just as a small side note, Dr. Stuart McGill is one of the leading spine scientists. I think he dedicated 30 or 40 years of his life to the spine, so this guy knows what he talks about. And when you read through the book I just started, he talks a lot about postural problems. And goes back to the idea of Gray Cook from Functional Movement Systems, where he says, move well before moving often. And I always like to add, and under load. Make sure your body's able to move before you attach anything else to it, right?
Yes.
So what is your take on rotational stuff with kettlebells if you're not able to secure your lumbar spine. Side swings, or the back flips, bringing it down, or just even the figure eight, where you go down and you start rotating a little bit. What is your take on this?
Ooh, this is such a hairy issue. So first, since I vouch for simplicity in kettlebell training, 99.99% of people are never going to get to having to rotate when training with kettlebell. So they're not going to be doing circular cleans, for example. They're not going to be doing figure eights with a heavy kettlebell. And I wouldn't do figure eight with a heavy kettlebell.
No. Even though, Kat, if I may interject, even though, and that's what I'm sometimes a little bit frustrated with, is you see these exercises plastered online because they look cool. And I recently said, please keep your thought. I just want to interject real quick. I recently said a clean and press will not make an impression on social media, but it will leave a huge impression on your body. And that's what counts, right?
That's so true, yeah.
So keep going.
It's not sexy, but it makes you look sexy.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So keep going.
But that's exactly it. So those exercises that look really fancy, for example, kettlebell juggling. So I've done a little bit of it, and it didn't pass muster. So it didn't deliver what I wanted. What I wanted it to deliver. It is something that you can do for fun. Things like kettlebell juggling, all sorts of variation drills that I used to. I used to read this book by Steve Maxwell. So Steve Maxwell is another kettlebeller. I think you did recently a podcast with based on Steve Maxwell. Something.
What he said, that he abandoned kettlebells.
Yeah, and the thing with Steve Maxwell is I used to love his book because that was one of the first books that I read on kettlebells many years ago. So he was doing kettlebells before I was.
Yeah, he was an OG. He was an OG.
Yeah. However, the types of exercises that Steve used to do, because he's a martial artist, was very, let's say, risk to benefit ratio was very high.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do them. I just wouldn't, because I mean, if my goal is long time longevity, and I want to prevent injury in myself, so I'd rather get injured by picking a car off someone in an accident rather than by training. I mean, that's the stupidest way to injure yourself, through training.
Wow,
you want to injure yourself
analogy.
by carrying your partner out of a burning building, or saving your kids, something like this, right? I don't want to injure through training. And so that's why when it comes time to doing risky things with kettlebells or risky things with exercises in general, I don't. I don't. And in terms of rotation, yes, Russian athletes, like Russian jugglers, kettlebell jugglers, I actually knew one. A guy here in New Zealand, his name is Dimitri. He grew up in Russia, and he was a circus juggler.
Wow.
And back then, all they had was kettlebells starting from 16 kilos. That's 35 pounds. And he was a 12-year-old boy, and he was given the 16 kettlebell.
Oh my God. Let's go, boy. Let's go. Don't cry. Do it. Oh my God.
And so that's all they had to start with, 16, 24, 32. And they had to learn, and they had to develop very strong bodies. But they also, some of them, because I mean, again, Russia is very communist, and it didn't really value individual, right? So if an individual got broken, then you have 100 other individuals.
Yeah, who cares? Next one in the line.
Yeah. So because of that, I'm very happy that kettlebells came out into the West, and a bit of more individualism was applied to it, so that you don't treat people just like a replaceable cogs in a machine, and instead you address individual issues, and you give people individual recommendations, individual programs, and kind of let them decide what they want to do, rather than prescribing a blanket sort of giving them a blanket weight, saying, okay, everyone starts with 16 kilos.
Let's go.
I don't like that approach. I think everyone is an individual. They have to start from whatever weight they have to start from. And so with rotational exercises, going back to your question, I say that majority of people shouldn't be doing any kind of stuff that jugglers do. that professional circus artists do, because they train their bodies for that. And yes, they can even bend their lumbar spine and pick up a kettlebell with a bent lumbar, but they train their bodies for that.
And
they do.
And we don't know two things: whether they have a spine that is genetically built to withstand these types of pressures applied, and we don't know what happens when they're 70.
Yes.
So it's all right. So keeping this in mind, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate right now. I'm saying, okay, so let me do. You mentioned Steve Maxwell, and I did his Heaven or Hell workout, which has great exercises in it, but one I left out, the circular clean, because I think I did the exercise with a 20 kilo, or even with a 16. I can't remember. So I'm saying, okay, I know. Because that's what we get a lot. No problem if you use light weights. So my perspective, and then I'd like to get your take on it. My perspective is when people be like, you're overly careful. If we do stuff with light weights, for example, a Jefferson curl to mobilize the spine, I maybe do see some value in it. But I read in the book as well that he said that Dr. Stuart McGill says people are having problem because sometimes they have a spine that is posturally so deficient that when they stand up from a chair in a slouch position, they have pain. Then I get comments on the YouTube channel where folks like, I had a patient who broke his vertebrae by tying his shoelaces. So what is your approach on if somebody says, I know the circular clean is a little off, or juggling is okay for professionals, but I'm just using lightweight? What's your take?
Okay. So in that case, I go back to my priority system, right? So if that person has 20 minutes in their day, so I recently have this lovely client, this new client who has 20 minutes in the day, and she wants to achieve a certain result. And so far, she has been using methods that are not necessarily the best for achieving that result. And so that person might be juggling kettlebells or doing circular cleans with a light kettlebell. Is it achieving their goal in the time that they're giving themselves to achieve that goal? Are they getting their result? If they are, and they're not getting injured, happy days. My job is to warn them. So to say, okay, if you want to, for example, build muscle, get strong, get powerful, and stay well for the rest of your life in 20 minutes a day, this is not the most efficient use of your time. However, enjoyment also plays a huge role in fitness. We have to do what we like. So I say, I give myself 90% of what I need and 10% of what I want. I do silly things as well. And so, yes, some of the things I like are silly, and I do them. And I know that they're not the most time efficient things because I'm not a robot, but they are fun. They are fun for me. So if that person really loves their circular cleans with a lightweight or their juggling, fine. It's great. It's what they love doing. But it's important to not labor under a delusion that this is the best way to achieve up to you.
So keeping the goal in mind, saying like, listen, this is probably not getting you there where you want to go. That's okay. That's one thing that the coach says, and you're just rephrasing what Dan John said. He said a good coach gives you what you want, but he also gives you what you need, which I really love. But let's put it in a perspective where, like, okay, this guy or this gal is doing American swing, circular cleans, and bending the spine, and blah blah blah. Do you think that, and the person is telling you, I'm happy with it, but you know it may cause problem in most people. So that's why I'm always referencing this book, because this guy has 40 years of experience. So we could say, not everybody's getting hurt with the American swing. Of course not. Not everybody's getting hurt when they do Jefferson curls, even with heavier weights. We're not saying this, but let's put it in perspective. Most people will.
Yes.
Based upon data, economics, right? Based upon data, reality will probably knock on your door one day. So in that case, would you say, listen, if you're having fun, because I say this, I'm like, hey, listen, if you're having fun, it's cool. But if I got this from motivational interviewing. Have you heard of that book?
Yes.
It's awesome, because it's like you're asking for permission, and this is really a game changer. It's like, can I tell you something? Or may I share my opinion? And they're like, yeah. So the door is open. Then I'm like, okay, then I can step in. And would you do this? Would you say like, okay, I know you like it. I know it's fun, but it maybe hurts you.
Totally, absolutely. And I say it all the time to my clients, because at the end of the day, the person is the king of their castle. They're a person in themselves, and they have the ultimate decision-making power on what to do. All I can do is I'm just the expert who can tell them what will happen or what likely might happen if they do this. So for example, sometimes they say, okay, so would you wash your hair with a shampoo that you really love the smell of, but it's 70% chance that your hair is going to fall out? Some people will.
Yeah. I like
so
this.
Will you do the exercise that 70% chance you're going to break your spine, but you really like how it looks? Some people will.
Yeah, keep going.
And it's totally fine. And again, all we can say, okay, this is the statistics, this is why this might happen. Go with your eyes wide open.
Like it. Great. So let's dive into these great comments that you had in the notes. Learning from YouTube versus learning with a coach or with a coach. Now, before we dive into this, I really need to ask you this, Kat. You're on YouTube as well. Who are the experts on YouTube? The kettlebell experts.
Ooh, I'm really bad at knowing that, because I am on YouTube, but I'm actually not much on YouTube.
Okay, not the culture. That's totally fine. But okay, let's put it like this. Is there somebody who really, someone that you could not avoid, and then you checked out their stuff and you're like, okay, or okay. Anybody that comes to mind, or just YouTube in general. Anybody.
So I remember stumbling on caveman training. So I've actually had dealing with the gentleman from caveman training.
Taco Fleur, right? Taco, right? Yeah.
That's right, Taco Fleur. I've read his book. He's very much into kettlebell sport, and he's very passionate about nature, which I really love.
Yeah.
And he makes his videos to great music, which I really love. And he is not a stranger to CrossFit, which makes me feel sort of
connected.
A bit of affinity with him. So he knows what it's like to want intensity. I haven't been watching much recently of kettlebellers. I have been watching your channel whenever I go on YouTube, and it's very interesting, very fun. The first one I saw was your breakdown of Jillian Michaels. I think that's what YouTube recommended to me. And then my jaw just dropped.
Yeah,
and
this is nuts.
Wow, this guy is doing what we're secretly thinking, but we never.
Listen, Kat, you're saying what I'm thinking. And you're saying, when I talked to Dan John about this, and because I wanted to get his reaction to one of, because that's what he sometimes do when we often, he's on a podcast often. Then I'm like, hey, let's do a reaction. I even did one with Luca from Hardstyle Kettlebell Pro and Kettlebell Hardstyle Pro. So I'm like, I got his reaction, and I felt like he was so careful with his words. And I mean, we can edit things out. I don't care about this. If you say something like, Gregory, I don't want this to be on the channel. I don't want it to be public. That's fine. You can tell me and I'll edit this out. Yet, I believe in respectfully disagreeing and respectfully pointing out truth from error. I want people to develop a certain sense of discernment, understand what is real and what is not, while not attacking the person. It's not about Jillian Michaels. It's not about her personality. I watch her videos and I know what she's like, and she sends off some strange vibes, I have to be honest. And in one video, I really got a little bit mad and emotional, but I have to be honest, YouTube likes that stuff. So sometimes I'm like, I got to edit this out. And I'm like, no, let it in, because YouTube favors that. Unfortunately or unfortunately, depending on the way you look at it. So I see that coaches are so slow to speak up, even in a respectful manner. We're having a debate, and when I talk to experts, it's always the same thing. You mention this guy or this gal's name, and people are like, oh my God. But when it's public, it's like, well, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And Yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I wanna have some sort, because I wish I had this a few years ago. When I was diving into those functional movements, realizing how dangerous and actually stupid they are and don't serve value. Yes, if you do it for fun, go about it. But most people need most bang for their buck, because I believe most people do not invest a lot of time into working out. So our job is to give them as much efficiency, efficacy as possible in the time that they're willing to invest, right? So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. And that swing, out of this world.
Oh yes, yeah, it makes your hair stand up and just move
and
on top of your head. Yeah,
and it's so rampant. You know, that's why I think it's needed, because it's so rampant on social media as well. And when I talked to, that's why I mentioned in the review video that I did about you, I said the problem with Kettlebell Dojo is she has only 3,000 subscribers or something like this, which, I mean, this does not take anything away from your knowledge, your passion, or your expertise. But it shows me again that influencers with 1.5 million subscribers are showing 1.5 million people how to engage with kettlebells in a way where experts be like, ah. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yes, it actually made me think. Your comment, it was extremely helpful. It lit a giant fire under my butt. In terms of, yes, the scope of influence, and also it just made me wonder where my YouTube channel was going, because I actually didn't start it to have a channel. So I have an online coaching business and I have an app. And I make exercise technique videos for my existing clients who already train with me, to remind them what we have learned. And I just needed a platform to stick it on, because I just didn't have space to share, like to send a video to them. So I thought, okay, I'll just put it on YouTube. And actually on that channel, so many more videos that are on the channel that are visible are invisible. They're private videos.
Yeah.
And I just share them with just clients, because they're just exercise technical videos, just literally that.
Yes.
And when I noticed that people started following and commenting, I realized, well, this might be helpful to other people. And so I just started sometimes posting just for the broader public, but my focus still was on my clients. And I haven't really thought of myself as a YouTuber or any kind of creator on YouTube until very recently. And you sort of brought up that whole idea that, this trainer, she has the 3,000 subscribers, and why, in comparison to influencers who design their channels so as to attract people.
Yeah.
For example, they design more workouts. And in the past, I used to think, why would anyone want to follow a workout on YouTube? You need a program. You need to focus on yourself when you're training. You don't need to look at something. But then I realized that I am not the people. What people want is what people want. So you got to give people what people want. And that made me sort of design a little bit more workouts and share a little bit more things like that people ask me on YouTube. But I also think that influencers, or people who post workouts and post a little bit more frequently and post content that a little bit more entertaining, I take my hat off to them in a way that I am quite private and a little bit, I would say, scared to expose myself in such a way. Because when you produce all this content, you not only produce content, but you also come in a way of criticism, critique, bad comments potentially.
100%.
And it is a little bit scary. And it wasn't something that I wanted to expose myself to. I have my private life. I have my private practice. I'm like Mrs. Miyagi, like from Karate Kid. I'm just this wax on, wax off lady who just lives like a hermit in her own little tiny country.
I love it. And if I just may interject real quick, I got to read this. because I just read, I had a podcast, because that sort of ties into this idea of being private, not want to be famous or have that celebrity status. But I came up with this because I heard part of it in a podcast. So it goes like this: I don't consider myself to be famous, nor do I occupy any kind of celebrity status. I just happen to have a public presence because of the line of my work. So that's maybe the thought that may help you, because you are so experienced, you have a lot of expertise, you are a wealth of knowledge. This is your line of work, and this leads to the fact that you are developing a public presence, not famous. I don't like influencer, famous, celebrity. I don't like these words. I don't even like the term fan. And people are like, I'm such a huge fan. I'm always like, you guys are students. That's what you are. I always believe the teacher is just the student that is the highest motivated student becomes the teacher. But you always stay a student, right? That's what makes you a better teacher. So I come from that perspective. I do acknowledge that we are building this public presence, but it's because of our work and not because of I feel so suchy much and I feel so great about myself and I want my face to be plastered everywhere. So that's maybe the thought that may help you to be like, okay, maybe I take this YouTube thing more seriously, because the reason why I want you to do it, or why we all need you to do it, is because there is a influx of through TikTok as well, of misinformation, so to speak, where people are just massively confused. And so what happens at the end of the day when they show up in your practice, they come up with all these notions, ideas, and confusion, and you, the coach, will have a hard time to really go through the chaos and help them. So if there are more experts out there exposing, not exposing the truth, then this may help people to clear up some confusion. So that's why I do this. And you know, YouTube is so special and so interesting. The videos that have some drama in it generate a lot of clicks and views. And because YouTube is so overly saturated, you have to somehow understand the system, I do believe. And we get those bad comments. We get these incredibly negative and hateful comments as well. But I've stopped caring to a certain degree, because the positive impact is powerful. 80% is positive, what I'm getting, and 20% is negative. And the funny thing is, even from the most negative and bitter comments, I get some nuggets of truth out of them. You really have to squeeze the comment, but sometimes I'm like, wow, that's true, if you take away all the emotional fluff that comes with it. But
yeah, that's really true. That makes total sense. And I think, I mean, that fact alone, the fact that I want to help teach the right way, is the thing that pretty much prevents me from not doing any appearance in front of the camera, because I'm a little bit camera shy as well. And I think the only thing that stops me from just saying, okay, that's it, I'm not doing any videos at all, is the fact that the desire to share is more than the fear.
It's greater. Yeah. And I do understand the fear where you're coming from. And there's a saying that I have now even incorporated into our coaching practice. There's a saying on YouTube that goes like this: your first videos are your worst videos. Because you have to understand how the system works. And now in the coaching practice, I'm saying, when we're teaching stuff, I'm always saying, don't worry, your first swings are your worst swings. That's totally fine. And when they look at the way we do it, it's like, but it looks so fluent. You'll probably hear this a lot. It's like, it looks so good, looks so fluent, looks so perfect. And then I'm always saying, yeah, but that's my 100,000th rep, probably. Yeah. These are your first 10. So it takes time, right? But just as what I really want to get out of you is, you mentioned these 2 points, and I probably took it in a different direction, but learning from YouTube versus with a coach, and the changing nature of coaching. What are your focus points on this, your focal points?
Oh my God, I can't believe you actually brought up these topics. Those were just in case we've run out of things to talk about.
Okay. Okay,
I
that's
didn't
awesome.
prepare
Okay.
anything with them.
Okay. All right.
But you learning from YouTube versus with a coach, just really, really short. I mean, based from the people that have contacted me for coaching from all around the world who have started with my YouTube channel, and I thought I explain things quite well. I say what's not to do, what not to do, or what to do, what not to do, and yet the person shows up and I do their online video technique check, and I see how important it is for the eyeballs of a coach to be on you.
100%.
Impossible to not have it. And
impossible.
And so that's pretty much it. So when people learn from YouTube has no feedback mechanism.
Yeah.
You just watch and then you do what you think is the right thing to do. But very often the body doesn't what we think we look like. You know those funny pictures, like what I think I look like.
What my parents think or what I think I'm doing. That's
it's like a hippopotamus. So that's exactly what it is. What I think I look like when I'm swinging a kettlebell on YouTube video and what I actually look like. And so that's why I think that, and I highly recommend people, if you're training with YouTube, fine, just have someone check your technique.
Especially if you really want to take it serious, want to get results with kettlebells, upgrading the weights one day, man. I confirm this 1,000%. When I see people, and this was something that I have seen now recently, because we have done just mostly coaching in the gym, and mostly it's been coaching one-on-one with the person. And now since YouTube and the whole pandemic thing, I mean, I've been doing YouTube for a long time, but I've switched to English, I think about 1.5 years ago, and that just sparked an explosion. So now we're getting this feedback from these people. And what I see is what you are saying. The eye of the coach differentiates the person who lifts well, and that person, you can put a line of guys or gals who lift with kettlebells and looks kind of the same. Just some the law of individual differences always applies, right? Yet when you take somebody who hasn't worked out with a coach, no chance. No chance. The nuances, the feedback is the powerful aspect, but the nuances of training, the questions that you're asking that will never be answered via video because it's impossible to answer. Maybe you get this answer somewhere in the video at the 10-minute mark, but you don't even know that you have the question for it. Right? So I agree 100%. I say this every time. I'm like, listen, guys, if you enjoy kettlebell, especially kettlebells. I mean, even dumbbells, barbells, free weights in general, you need a coach. And especially when you go into clean and snatches with barbells, we don't even want to go down that route. But the kettlebell has not only a free element, that's where I make the distinction. It's not only free weights that your body have to move through space and time. It's also the ballistic element that works with timing, understanding the feeling. And now remember, and I still have it sometimes, where when I'm jerking or snatching, snatch is now almost safe, but sometimes when I'm jerking, I still feel, oh, that wasn't a good one. And then I got 5, 6, 7 good ones, then one is missing. And you see, and that's why I love Denis Vasilev. When I look at his technique, it's flawless. He's like a surgeon. Yeah. It looks like an alien. It's like an alien. Yeah, it's like a robot. You turn it on. This is so going. And he just goes. It's crazy. Wow. Yeah. And just on a last note, Kat, Hardstyle and kettlebell sport. I give you my quick rundown, and then I'm really looking forward to your comment on it. And by the way, I saw you're Precision Nutrition Certified Level 1?
Yes.
Great. I've done Level 1 and 2.
Oh, fantastic. It's a great program.
Wow. And I highly recommend Level 2. Level 2 is...
That's where it digs into the psychological aspect.
And takes you way deeper. It's powerful stuff. So I was taught, my mentor was Steve Cotter. So I was taught in the way of the hybrid kind of ideology, using Turkish get-ups, using press, using squats and stuff like this with the kettlebell, but engaging when it comes to the ballistics, engaging in kettlebell sport. So from that moment, I was kind of like a little biased towards the hardstyle guys. So then I opened up. Thankfully, I opened up. And now I see this wealth of knowledge. Because the reason why I opened up was Luca Kurce, he was so cool. And he gave us some critical feedback where I realized, and I need your take on this. I realized a Turkish get-up, a goblet squat, a strict press, an overhead squat, a windmill, a bent press. These exercises, you learn them best from the hardstyle guys. Because kettlebell sport, and this was a revelation to me, kettlebell sport is long cycle snatch jerk. That's it. This is your SPP, right? And GPP, you maybe do some back squats or whatever, when I see Dennis do it. So now I'm kind of, because when I talk to Brittany van Schravendijk, to Fitbrit, I had a podcast with her as well.
I actually did my programming for my gearway competition.
Wow, she's awesome.
Yes, she's fantastic.
That's cool. See, the world is connected. And I had a great podcast with her. And I see that she mentioned the word hybrid. And this is something that was in my mind a long time ago now. When I'm now digging into both styles, not being dogmatic about it, and taking the best of both worlds is what works best for me. So I consider myself a hybrid. I believe this is style number 3 that is emerging now. It's the sport, it's hardstyle, and along comes hybrid. So what is your take on this? Where are you coming from? And because you are hardstyle and sport, so your take on the situation.
So hardstyle in Russia is simply called kettlebells for fitness. So it's not hard style, it's just using kettlebells for fitness, and then you use kettlebells for sport. And so kettlebells for fitness, you lift them in a hard style fashion, and kettlebells for sport, you lift them in a way as to spare your grip first and foremost, because in the sport you're not allowed to put the kettlebell down or change hands. You're supposed to do one arm for 5 minutes, or if you're doing doubles, change 10 minutes on 2 hands. So you spare your smallest muscle groups, and a lot of technique in kettlebell sport goes towards sparing the smallest muscle groups for the 10 minutes. So if I'm not practicing a movement for 10 minutes, or at least for 5 minutes, then there is no point in me using kettlebell sport technique for that, because my goal, if I aim to build muscle, if I aim to increase power, is to actually engage my body to the fullest. So I want to lift the heaviest kettlebell for a short period of time, using my posterior chain. And if I have to, I put the kettlebell down, I re-choke my hands, and then I go again. So that's why in Special Forces snatch test, for example, they found that if they did the snatch test a la kettlebell sport for the Special Forces, you couldn't actually see the fitness of the recruit, because their grip gave out before they could demonstrate their strength. And so what they did is they introduced the snatch test with unlimited grip switches, and you can even put the kettlebell down. And that's when they started seeing the actual strength and power of the recruit, when the grip wasn't a problem anymore. So because of that, I use kettlebell sport for kettlebell sport. So when I compete at least once a year, this year probably going to be twice a year, and for 12 weeks a year, probably 6 weeks before the first comp and 6 weeks before the second comp, I practice kettlebell sport movements in addition to my hard style stuff as well. And what I found is that even though I practice kettlebell sport so little, hardly anything in comparison to actual kettlebell sport athletes, I have set a number of national records. Granted, New Zealand is a tiny country, so anyone can set a number of national records, probably.
Still, it's good stuff.
A number of national records just because I'm so strong from hardstyle. So when I pick up a kettlebell and I'm in the rack position for gear avoid, which is a very relaxed rack. But because I'm used to holding double 20s in a hardstyle rack position for my hardstyle practice, that is not a problem. I'm like, oh my God, this is so relaxing.
You're on vacation. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
wow.
yeah, so what I found is that strength practice of hardstyle is the foundation of my training. And then when I need to apply it to sport, or even if it's like a pentathlon, kettlebell pentathlon.
Yeah. From Valerie
Vetorenko, right? Yeah, I also use Gervoy style there because you're there for 3 minutes or for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a full pentathlon.
Yeah.
And again, I train those movements hard style. So I train clean and jerk hard style. I train swing hard style. I train snatch hard style, because when I then apply the Gervoy technique to that, because I can switch to Gervoy technique because I've been doing it long enough, it feels like a piece of cake. Wow. It feels easy.
Wow.
But whenever I practice with Gervoy style, it slows down my strength gains. And that's just me. That's what I found. So because of that, I would just say, what does a person want? If they want strength and power and lean muscle mass in the shortest period of time for training, for example, 20 minutes 3 times a week, I would say go hard style as much as possible. And if they like the feel of the Gervoy sport, because it's beautiful.
It's awesome.
It's gorgeous. It's so flowing.
Yeah.
It feels amazing.
Yeah.
You also do it. And again, it's like one of those things that you do for fun or for endurance, like on endurance days. Gervoy sport, fantastic. I sometimes do that half pentathlon. Gervoy sport feels great. So again, it's those things that, the functional stuff that delivers, and then the things that feel great.
Yeah.
And so that's my view on that. I noticed that in your workouts, you guys do Gervoy sport style, and then you finish with some hard style swings. And I really like that you give people both.
Yeah, and that's where I think the hybrid comes from, and that's what I originally received from Steve Cotter, but he didn't coin it that way, and I'm just coining it the hybrid, because when we work out, because I love the feeling of and I have to be honest, when I talked to Brittany, she was like, I think I'll never get the feeling of a hardstyle snatch, because I just love the sport snatch. It's just different. And I think I'm in that camp as well, because I just love the working with the lever mechanics of your body and feeling it completely different. And I love it. Yet I love to combine it with heavy grinds, heavy deadlifts, rows, strict press, clean and strict press, overhead squats, just those grinds. That's why I think it's so powerful. And what Dennis said, it's a hardcore sport, so it's more hardcore because the nuances to learn, and you mentioned this in your video that I reviewed, it's the beauty of the hardstyle is it's minimalist. And kettlebell sport is almost like a science in and all by itself when you look at the snatch, or just a pendulum leg action with the double knee bend. It's just completely different. But I think both worlds are offering you this powerful view on kettlebells. And I'm always saying, and I'm pretty hardcore in this, I believe these are the best ways to approach kettlebells. Either you approach it with the hardstyle methodology, because they understand the ballistics and the power of kettlebells, or you approach it the Russian way, the kettlebell sport way, because they understand it as well. And what I'm mostly critiquing on YouTube is that stuff that you can't put anywhere.
Yes.
And I recently said in the video, and I need your take on this, and I don't think we can wrap this up. I need your take on this. I recently said in the video, these kettlebell coaches who do not engage in neither hardstyle nor kettlebell sport, I believe they mask their inefficiency to understand the kettlebell with always choosing lightweights. Because you can move a 4 kilo, 6 kilo, 8 kilo kettlebell as a man however you want.
Correct. Yeah.
It does not give you the correct feedback to tell your body, I don't think that's a good idea.
And it doesn't mean you're using a kettlebell even, because you got to use a kettlebell based on based on what it's for.
The most differentiating factor, right? That
yes. So you might as well just pick a sack of grain and use it the same way. So it doesn't make you a kettlebell trainer if you use a weight around. It has to be, you have to put your whole body into it. So if it doesn't require you to use your body to its maximum sort of capacity and in the optimal way to lift a weight, then you're not lifting a weight, you're just bicep curling something, which is okay, which again, fine.
If that is your goal.
Does not a kettlebell training make.
Yes. And that's exactly where I'm coming from. So it's, in the Jillian Michaels video, I asked myself, why is that one participant on the right behind Jillian, why is she swinging with a dumbbell? And then I got the answer in the comments. They were like, well, they always do these DVDs with the dumbbell version so that everybody can buy it. So, hey, this is a kettlebell workout, but you can also do it with a dumbbell. Well, why didn't even call it a kettlebell workout? I think that's where you're coming from. And I think the biggest aspect of critiquing stuff like this is, and I think that's where most people shy away from or having problems with, is staying as respectful as possible. And I think sometimes it's not easy to do when you see how some people really elevate themselves to a position of being the kettlebell expert, and then you see what they do and you're like, wow, that's not how you approach it. And respectfully reviewing that stuff. And that's what it is. Kat, wow. Man, I saw you do powerlifting, the CrossFit stuff, but hey, Kat, how about we schedule another one?
Oh, sure.
Whenever you have great.
That was like
whenever you have time, because that's happens with a lot of our podcast guests actually, is we're having these awesome conversations that maybe take up 3-4 hours if we would do it all together. So I'm like, hey, let's step up to the plate, think about it, and I'll let you know when the video is live, and you can share it with everybody you want. You also want the raw file, right? So you can do whatever you want with it. I'm gonna send it to you, and then whenever you are ready, you can use the same link again, and we can schedule another session.
That would be amazing. That was so interesting talking to you. That was awesome. Fantastic, Gregory.
Kat, thank you very much. I always appreciate the wealth of knowledge I'm getting from you guys, from the likes like Dan, John, Brittany, you, Dennis. It just elevates my sense of understanding for not only kettlebells but also coaching people. And
do you mind if I ask you, how did you come into kettlebell training yourself?
Well, the first time I've heard about kettlebells, that was in, I think, 10, 11 years ago. And I've heard about Pavel and I've heard about Steve. But my background is traditional bodybuilding type of training. But I never had the genetics, and I never stepped into medication and drugs to really become a huge bodybuilder. And I never had the genetics for it. But I love the way of training, splitting it, chest day, leg day, stuff like this. And then I started incorporating some easy kettlebell training, because with the background that I had with weights, I understood the basics, the deadlift, the press and stuff like this. But I didn't understand the ballistics. So the pandemic, not before the pandemic, 2019 was the year I decided to invite Steve Cotter. And the reason why I fared with Steve is because I liked his mentality more than I liked what Pavel was doing. I didn't like Pavel's shtick of comrade, now I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it.
It's a sales trick. It's so transparent.
It's a sales trick, it is. And I enjoy it. But I also heard about some RKC guys in my area, which the way they were writing blog posts and they were talking, that wasn't my vibe. But Steve was way more. So 2019, I got certified with the IKSFA with Steve, and then I took a deep dive. And I'm not looking back. And the pandemic, thanks to the pandemic, this is what drove me to highly focus on kettlebells. So I'm pretty young in the game, so to speak.
Great, and you hit the ground running. That is admirable, like truly admirable.
Thank you. Well, it's just, I have to credit Steve. Steve was the most pivotal moment in my career, and from there, it just went, like I said, I just told my mother this today. The pandemic forced me into this direction because we had to close the gym as well, but we didn't care because we took the bells outside. And we were working out at minus whatever degrees, and people came up with jackets and all packed, and we were lifting kettlebells.
Fantastic. Yeah, exactly. It was the era. The 2020 was the year of kettlebells.
Yeah. And
Steve Cotter, just a comment on Steve Cotter. He is superb. I have all his books, and he's inhuman alien as well. I don't know how he does the things he does.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's actually the guy that makes me think those who do kettlebell sport are strong too, because his mobility and strength and just the way he moves is phenomenal.
And that's why he learned with Pavel and under his guidance, and then he went to Russia to see the origins. That's his story. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm having him on the podcast as well. I'm paraphrasing, but I remember what he told me. He said he learned from Pavel in the RKC days, and then he went to Russia, and then he decided to do his own thing. And I think Steve is the original hybrid. Because I think Steve Maxwell does not engage in kettlebell sport, as far as I'm aware of.
No, he's more kettlebells for martial arts.
Yeah. And Steve as well. Steve has a martial arts background. I think Pavel as well. And I read about Pavel Tsatsouline. I think that's interesting. I read in the StrongFirst forum that Pavel Tsatsouline did engage in kettlebell sport in the military. And he achieved the rank Master of Sport in the military, actually. I read it in the forum. And, now I'm just taking... Steve really set the spark. And now I'm really taking everything in I can about kettlebells, and I'm really taking a deep dive because I think I found my calling, so to speak.
Yes, you did. You're really good at what you do, and we need people like you, exactly for that, to call us out, and to call us out both on if we are talking nonsense or if we are not talking, if we are sitting down quietly muttering, but not
quietly muttering, right? And that's so funny because everybody does it in private, and like I said, I'm respectfully disagreeing and pointing out flaws and error. And you know what the beautiful thing is, we have folks in our comment section who are pointing out not only good things about what I'm saying in terms of they sometimes take it a step further. We're getting, just recently somebody commented who said, I was a mechanic in the Tour de France or something like this. I was working with high intensity cycling athletes. And then he gave his backstory on some kind of, because it was injury related. And whether this is true or not, I don't care, but I do believe it's true because we get these incredible insights from people all around the world who are really elevating my knowledge. And the other thing is I'm learning so much from people who are critiquing my stuff and who are critical based on my approach, where many times I'm like, wow, I didn't see it from this perspective. I just have my two eyes, I'm going that way. And sometimes you get another perspective, you're like, oh, you're opening up. So critique is powerful because critique helps you evolve, right? I mean, and just as a final note, how does science work? I mean, you have scientists coming up with a thesis or with an idea, and they try to prove it wrong. That's what I love about the science guys. They try to prove it wrong, and then they come up with a result. They say, this is the conclusion, this is the method that we applied, and this is the result that we got. And now here comes the other guy saying, hey, I'm your peer. Let me check if I can replicate what you do. And if you have 10 scientists being able to replicate what they're doing in an RCT, in a randomized controlled trial, you have the highest level of evidence. But it only happens because people choose to engage.
Yes, and they choose to be open to that bombardment of critique.
Yeah. And yes, there will be, you mentioned this, but you're scared about it. Yes, there will be negative comments and really bad ones, but we have to kind of like dismiss this because there's so much value coming out of it. And what we are actually seeing in our YouTube comment section is, that's what I love. And I mentioned this on the video as well. I said, we are building a community of people who help each other out instead of fighting with each other. You always have some discussions and fights sometimes going on in the comment section, but mostly I see people helping out each other.
Yes. You're harnessing what is actually, if you read Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, it's a history of humankind. The thing that humans do, the thing that humans, pretty much what makes humans apex predators and higher than all the other animals, is this power that we have, and it's called communal learning. And what we do is communal learning. So humans have a perspective. So one human has a perspective and they learn things throughout their life, but they are not only have that perspective and they just use that perspective, but what they do is they share it with others. The others critique it, and the person can adjust it and then share it with some other person, and then they critique and then they adjust. And so everyone shares their perspectives and bounces their ideas off each other. And so what we do is we exponentially improve in our knowledge and understanding of the world, the environment, and that's why humans are apex predators. Wow. So this ability to communally learn is what internet sort of just like skyrocketed. That's why now people are learning from each other, but it's very scary as well. And so that's why what you're doing is beautiful, because you are accelerating this communal learning in terms of fitness, health, kettlebells, everything. So you're making us more evolved, literally. Wow. It's really good.
That's powerful. And just as a side note, what just comes to mind, because you mentioned, and don't want to get too much into politics, but you mentioned about the socialist country and Russia, and how we found out in Venezuela as well, we see it doesn't work because you inhibit this communal learning, because you don't have a free market, right? I think that's the reason why the free market works, because you have these ideas bouncing around, and then the market accepts what is working and rejects what is not working. And so, and because we have competition, and of course there's a downside to it, of course, but because we have the competitive vibe to it, it's like, wow, who comes up with the greatest idea and the greatest concept based upon what this person has learned, and then we can add to it and build this powerful wealth of knowledge. So that's, wow.
Yeah, that's so true. And in the the thing is, the difference between free market and a system of socialism, for example, because socialism is central planning. When you have free market, you have each individual entrepreneur testing their own hypothesis and succeeding or failing with their customers, which is a small number of people, and the entrepreneur. So they succeed or fail. In socialist system, you have central planning. So if it's right or wrong, you either succeed or you will murder 60 million people, which is what happened. So if your plan is good, you might build a rocket. If your plan is bad, you will starve 60 million Ukrainians, which is what Stalin did. So in the system of socialism, the mistakes are being paid by the entire population. Yeah. In the system of capitalism, you can have trial and error, which is how humans evolve, trial and error. Yeah. But the people who cop the fallout are the entrepreneurs in capitalism, the people who are risk takers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the people who decide to risk and take their product. You know, that shampoo that 70% makes you bald and 30% smells nice. Well, those people will test it out. In a socialist system, the government will force that product on all the people.
Yeah, and everybody and everybody has to take it, come hell or high water. And you see, and
so that's why it's so good.
Wow. And that's why I believe, that's why I said this in the video as well. That's why I believe when you engage with kettlebells, follow what has been tested and tried and withstood the fire of peer review. Mm-hmm. Because people are, of course, we're questioning that stuff. When I was, I read this great article, I think it was a Russian article translated in English, where I was studying the rack rest position, because people always commented on that's bad for your lower back. So then I started studying it, and I kind of understood the concept that when you rack the bells on your pelvis and you keep your knees locked, and the weight pulls down in front of your pelvis and in front of your knees down to your toes, you're safe. The problem is if it pulls down behind your pelvis, behind your knees, on your heels, that's when your lower back gets hurt. So you have to understand how to engage in it. And I love it because Dennis said, well, originally this comes from Olympic barbells. All right, the snatch, the clean, the jerk. Where does it originate from? Well, you originally do it with barbells. So the kettlebell sport guys just copied these exercises, but had to adapt to the mechanics of the kettlebell, right? And with Hardstyle, I mean, you see it, for example, in the Turkish get-up, where this one mistake in the Turkish get-up took time for Pavel or for the Hardstyle guys to engineer out the mistakes, because it takes feedback. It's like, listen, hey, I'm seeing this exercise does not work well in this case. Okay, we have to tweak it then. So that's why I'm saying trust either the sport guys or the Hardstyle guys or both, and don't listen to folks who don't follow that train of thought, because they deviate and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You want to trust the science of people who design exercises for making you stronger, making you healthier, rather than looking fancy while doing it.
Yes.
Or just I mean, that's just it. I mean, again, it goes back to priorities and what you actually want, and you want to follow the person who also has similar priorities and who also want those things.
100%. Yeah. Wow.
That was so phenomenal talking to you.
Kat, hey, likewise. Hey, yes. It was really enjoy it, Kat, and I see the wealth of knowledge that you're serving to our community, to the YouTube channel, to me, which I'm highly grateful for. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it, consider subscribing if you want to see more kettlebell content. And if you're looking for a kettlebell program that builds you up from a beginner to a slowly advanced trainee in the course of about 3 months, and you maybe want to combine it with some easy to follow nutrition coaching, because maybe you want to lose weight or you want to get in shape, then check out 90 Days of Kettlebells. You'll find the link in the description. 14-day free trial included.